Hi, I'm Todd Wente, and this is the Daily 180, 180 seconds of motivation and inspiration intended to help you take action and make progress in your life. This is episode 597 of the Daily 180. And now that we've concluded our series on how to handle negative self-talk, we're going to jump back into the information that we've got in Tribe of Mentors and talk about the next quote. And my goodness, I really love this one, largely because it compartmentalizes, or it summarizes a lot of things that I've run into that have been really, really interesting. The question that was asked, and again, this is information from Mike Maples Jr. The question that was asked was, what advice do you give? And he says, I try not to. And the reason that he says he tries not to is because just because something worked for him doesn't mean it's going to work for somebody else. In fact, he says most bad advice that he can get to comes from people saying, I was successful, so do this my way. Do it like this. And he says it just doesn't always work. He said, but what does seem to work is, for him, is to say, I can't answer your question, but this might be a good way for you to think about it. I have to admit, there have been times when people have asked me for advice and I've given it. And later on, when I've been thinking about the advice that I gave them, the situation that they're in, some of the other pieces that are going on, I think maybe that wasn't the best advice. In fact, I have a mentor that when you approach him with a question, I've watched him do this. You approach him with a situation, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what he's going to say because he's had other people come to him with the same information. What he'll do is he'll say, that's really interesting. Let's talk about it a little bit. And he'll say, I've not heard that before, or I'm not sure I've ever heard this before. Let's talk about it. And I asked him about it one time. I said, John, you've heard this stuff so many times, it's not even funny. How do you say you haven't heard it before? He says, every situation with every person is potentially absolutely unique. And so unless I talk about it with people, I'm not going to be able to really give them good advice. Now, oftentimes we don't have situations where we can sit down with people and spend an hour or two talking about what's led them to where they're at and what kinds of things are influencing their choices. But what we can do is suggest to them different ways of looking at the problem. And that I have found is much better than giving them solutions. When people come to me and say, Todd, I trust your judgment, please help me figure out how to handle this problem. Instead of saying, well, you need to do this and this and this, I say, have you thought of it in these terms? Have you thought about this kind of dynamic? Have you thought about it as having these kind of components with it? Does that help you see it a little differently? And what I found is that when I do that with people, it helps. Guess what? Maybe we should do that with ourselves too. Instead of looking to somebody else and saying, how would you tell me to fix my problem? Stop and let's look at our problem and see if maybe we can look at it from different perspectives that give us some new insights. I know for me, that's been tremendously valuable. I hope that that's valuable for you too. And hey, if you'd like to bounce some things off me, you are more than welcome to send me an email, send me a text, send me a chat and say, hey, Todd, I got a question. What would you do with this? I'd be glad to do that kind of a process with you. Hopefully this has been useful for you. If it has, give us a thumbs up or give us some kind of a comment. Share this with your tribe. Share it as far as wide as you can because we want more people to join us on the road to progress. In the meantime, this has been the Daily 180. My name is Todd Wente. Go forth and conquer. We'll see you next time.